December 16, 1944, 5:30 a.m. Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The snow is still falling when the sky splits open. A low, distant rumble rolls across the frozen hills, then another, and then the earth itself seems to convulse. German artillery, more than 1,600 guns, erupts along an 80-mile front. Shells tear through pine forests and explode inside American foxholes. Telephone lines snap. Radios crackle into static. Men wake up to fire. You can almost feel the concussion in your chest. In the sleepy American sector held by the WWII Corps, the front line is thin, dangerously thin. These are rest units, green replacements, battle-worn divisions recovering from months of fighting in France. The 106th Infantry Division, fresh and untested. The 28th Infantry Division, exhausted. Intelligence briefings had been confident. The Germans were finished, broken, incapable of mounting anything large. And then the fog lifts. Out of the mist come panzer columns, panthers and tigers grinding forward, their engines echoing through the narrow roads of the Ardennes. Infantry in white camouflage move through the trees like ghosts. The German offensive, code-named Wacht am Rhein, is not a raid. It is a sledgehammer. At Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, SHAEF, in Versailles, France, telephones begin ringing before dawn. Reports are fragmented, confused. Heavy shelling. Enemy armor sighted. Communications lost. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of Allied forces in Europe, is not yet alarmed. He has seen German counterattacks before, local spoiling attacks, desperate gestures from a crumbling Reich. By December 1944, Allied forces have liberated Paris. The Rhine seems within reach. German fuel reserves are critically low. Their air force is a shadow of its former self. A major offensive, in winter through the Ardennes. Unlikely, but the reports keep coming. By mid-morning, entire regiments are cut off. The 422nd and 423rd Regiments of the 106th Division are surrounded near Schnee-Eifel. American artillery batteries are overrun before they can limber their guns. German commandos in American uniforms begin slipping through the lines, sowing confusion. The fog of war thickens. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, officially commander in the West, has unleashed one last gamble. A massive armored thrust designed to split the Allied front, seize Antwerp, and fracture the British and American alliance. Behind the assault stands Adolf Hitler himself, convinced that one bold stroke can reverse the war. But at SHAEF, that reality has not yet crystallized. Eisenhower studies the situation map. Colored pins mark divisions. The red arrows are multiplying. Still, there is hesitation in the room. Major General Walter Bedell Smith, Eisenhower's chief of staff, reads incoming summaries aloud. Enemy strength unknown. Armored elements confirmed. Breakthrough possible. Possible. Outside, Versailles remains calm. The winter air is crisp. The war feels far away. Inside, something is shifting. By late afternoon, it is undeniable. This is no local counterattack. German armor is driving west toward the Meuse River. American lines are bending, and in places, breaking. Eisenhower does not shout. He does not panic. But witnesses will later recall the silence. A long, measured silence. He had believed, like most Allied commanders, that the Wehrmacht no longer possessed the strength, fuel, or coordination for a strategic offensive. Intelligence estimates had suggested Germany was on the defensive everywhere. Now, in the span of hours, that assumption is unraveling. And as the snow continues to fall over the Ardennes, one question begins to hang in the air at Allied headquarters. How did they miss this? By nightfall, Eisenhower orders an emergency conference. The realization is coming. December 16, 1944, 9:00 p.m. SHAEF headquarters, Versailles. The map room is dim except for the green glow of shaded lamps hanging over the operations table. Cigarette smoke coils toward the ceiling. Boots scrape against polished floors. No one is speaking casually anymore. The red arrows have grown teeth. Eisenhower stands at the head of the long table, hands clasped behind his back. His expression is controlled, almost detached, but his eyes move quickly across the map. Saint-Vith, Clairvaux, Bastogne, names that had been quiet hours ago now pulse with urgency. Lieutenant General Omar Bradley joins by secure line from Luxembourg. His voice is tight. "This is no small attack, Ike. They've hit us with everything." Everything. Intelligence officers shuffle papers, offering revised estimates. Intercepted communications suggest multiple panzer divisions committed: 6th SS Panzer Army under Sepp Dietrich in the north, 5th Panzer Army under Hasso von Manteuffel in the center. Reports mention Tigers, Panthers, Volksgrenadier divisions in strength. This is not desperation. This is design. For weeks, German forces had moved under cover of bad weather and strict radio silence. Allied aerial reconnaissance, usually dominant, had been grounded by thick winter cloud cover. Fuel dumps had been quietly assembled, artillery pre-registered, entire armored columns hidden beneath forest canopies. The Ardennes had been considered a quiet sector, a place to rest divisions, to recover. It had fooled everyone. An intelligence officer clears his throat. "Sir, ultra intercepts did not indicate this scale of movement." No warning from codebreakers, no decisive aerial sightings, no clear pattern. The silence in the room tightens. Eisenhower finally speaks. "They've caught us with our pants down." The words are blunt, no theatrics, just fact. Around the table, senior commanders absorb the admission. It is rare, almost unheard of, for a supreme commander to acknowledge surprise so openly. But Eisenhower understands something critical. Denial wastes time. He turns to the map again. How far have they penetrated? A staff officer traces a finger westward. Up to 15 miles in some sectors. Saint-Vith is heavily engaged. Bastogne is exposed. Bastogne. 7 roads converge there, a logistical nerve center. If the Germans seize it, they can accelerate toward the Meuse River. If they cross the Meuse, Antwerp becomes conceivable. And if Antwerp falls, the Allied front fractures. Eisenhower straightens. This is the moment. Disbelief gives way to calculation. He does not dwell on how intelligence failed. He does not assign blame. Instead, his mind pivots to opportunity. German armor is thrusting forward in a narrow corridor. Their flanks are exposed. Their fuel situation remains precarious. If the Allies can hold key road junctions, if they can buy time, the German spearhead could become a trap. But first, the bleeding must stop. "I want every available division identified," Eisenhower says calmly, "Airborne included." There's a pause. The 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions are in reserve, refitting after Operation Market Garden. They were not meant to be thrown back into combat so soon. But there is no alternative. He turns to Bedell Smith. "Get them moving tonight." Outside, the winter wind rattles the windows of the palace that now serves as headquarters. Inside, telephones come alive. Orders ripple outward across France and Belgium. Trucks roar to life in the dark. Paratroopers scramble from billets, stuffing ammunition into bandoliers. Some still don't know where they're going. At the same time, Eisenhower makes another decision, one that will define the coming days. He calls for an emergency meeting with British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. Coordination across Allied lines will be essential. Pride must be set aside. The German offensive has created a bulge in the Allied front, a dangerous protrusion. But bulges can be pinched. As the meeting breaks, Eisenhower lingers at the map for a moment longer. The red arrows are still advancing. American units are still falling back. He knows the press will call it a disaster by morning. Yet beneath the shock, something else has taken root. Resolve. Because if the Germans have committed their last reserves here, if this is truly their final gamble, then this frozen forest could become the graveyard of their armored strength. But that outcome is not guaranteed. By midnight, Bastogne is nearly encircled, and the weather shows no sign of clearing. December 19, 1944, Verdun, France, 11:00 a.m. The conference room is cold. Maps of the Ardennes are pinned to portable boards, edges curling in the damp winter air. Outside, military vehicles grind through slush. Inside, the most powerful Allied commanders in Europe gather around a long wooden table. Eisenhower wastes no time. "They have thrown in everything they have," he says, voice steady but firm. "This is their big chance, and they've taken it." Around him sit General Omar Bradley, General George S. Patton, and Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, men with different temperaments, different egos, different visions of war. For a moment, none of that matters. What matters is the Bulge. German forces have carved a deep wedge into American lines. St. Vith is under crushing pressure. Bastogne is nearly surrounded. Weather still grounds Allied air power. The fog remains the Germans' greatest ally. Eisenhower points at the map. The present situation is to be regarded as one of opportunity for us, and not of disaster. The words hang in the air. Opportunity. It is not bravado. It is calculation. The German spearhead is narrow, exposed on both flanks. Their supply lines stretch through forest roads vulnerable to attack. If the Allies can hold the shoulders of the breakthrough and strike from north and south, the attackers can be cut off. But someone must hit them, hard and fast. Eisenhower turns to Patton. The Third Army commander has been listening quietly, jaw set. Patton had already begun pivoting elements of his army northward, sensing the scale of the crisis. His staff had worked through the night drafting contingency plans. "How soon can you attack?" Eisenhower asks. Patton does not hesitate. "Within 48 hours. There is a murmur in the room. Third Army is facing east toward the Saar. To attack north toward Bastogne requires a massive pivot, 3 divisions, roads jammed with traffic in winter conditions. Eisenhower locks eyes with him. "Make it so." It is a simple exchange. But in that moment the Allied response crystallizes. While the 101st Airborne Division under Major General Maxwell Taylor rushes toward Bastogne, trucks racing through icy darkness, Patton begins the impossible maneuver, turning an entire army 90 degrees in the snow. Meanwhile, the Germans press on. Manteufel's 5th Panzer Army drives west, seeking crossings over the Meuse. Sepp Dietrich's SS units clash with American defenders near Elsenborn Ridge, where stubborn resistance slows their timetable. Fuel shortages begin to whisper at the edges of their advance. But at Bastogne, the noose tightens. By December 20th, the town is surrounded. The 101st Airborne and elements of the 10th Armored Division dig into frozen ground. German artillery pounds the perimeter. Snow blankets foxholes. Medical supplies dwindle. Inside SHAEF, Eisenhower monitors hourly updates. The gamble is now clear to him. Hitler has committed his strategic reserve, elite panzer divisions held back for months, into this winter assault. If they break through, the war lengthens. If they fail, Germany's last armored strength will be shattered. The stakes are enormous. On December 21st, a German delegation approaches American lines at Bastogne with a demand for surrender. The reply from Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe is a single word: nuts. When Eisenhower hears it, he allows himself the faintest smile. Morale matters. But so does time. Every hour Bastogne holds allows Patton's columns to push north. Tank engines roar day and night. Infantry marches through sleet. Traffic jams stretch for miles as artillery and armor snake toward the sound of guns. Then on December 23rd, the sky changes. The clouds break. Blue slices through gray. Allied aircraft surge into the air, P-47 Thunderbolts diving onto German columns, C-47s dropping supplies into Bastogne. The Luftwaffe appears briefly, then fades. The balance begins to tilt. Eisenhower knows the moment has arrived. The Germans are extended, their fuel is running low, their surprise has faded. Now comes the counterblow. But winter is not finished with them. And the fight for the Bulge is about to become even more brutal. December 26, 1944, south of Bastogne, 4:45 p.m. The first tanks appear through the trees like steel phantoms. Snow churns beneath their treads. Infantry crouch low behind them, rifles clutched in mittened hands. The lead elements of Patton's 4th Armored Division push through German roadblocks under fading light. Ahead lies Bastogne, battered, bleeding, but unbroken. Inside the encircled town, men of the 101st Airborne hear the distant rumble first. Then the crack of American artillery firing in a new direction. Then a runner bursts into a cellar command post. They're here. When the link-up happens, it is not cinematic. No cheering crowds, no sweeping music, just exhausted soldiers shaking hands in the snow, faces hollow from cold and hunger. But strategically, it is everything. Eisenhower receives confirmation at SHAEF shortly after nightfall. Bastogne is no longer isolated. The German timetable, already slipping, is shattered. He exhales slowly. The gamble has failed. Yet the battle is far from over. The Bulge still protrudes deep into Allied lines. German armor remains dangerous. Fierce fighting rages around Houffalize, La Roche, and the approaches to the Meuse. The weather, though improved, is unpredictable. Casualties climb into the tens of thousands. Eisenhower now coordinates a massive pincer. From the north, Field Marshal Montgomery directs British XXX Corps and American 1st Army units southward. From the south, Patton drives north. The jaws begin to close. German resistance stiffens. SS Panzer divisions fight with fanatic intensity. Villages change hands multiple times. Snow turns pink, then red. But the deeper truth is becoming clear. German fuel convoys are being destroyed from the air. Panthers and Tigers sit abandoned along forest roads, their tanks dry. Ammunition dwindles. Communications falter. The offensive that began with thunder is losing its voice. On January 1, 1945, the Luftwaffe launches Operation Bodenplatte, a desperate attempt to smash Allied airfields in one last stroke. For a few hours, chaos reigns in the skies. But it changes nothing. By early January, Eisenhower's counteroffensive gathers unstoppable momentum. American forces retake St. Vith. The northern and southern pincers edge closer. The once menacing Bulge shrinks day by day. Inside SHAEF, the tone has shifted. Where there was shock, there is now focus. Where there was disbelief, there is controlled aggression. Eisenhower studies updated maps each morning. The red arrows are retreating. He understands something his commanders are only beginning to feel. Hitler has spent his final reserve. The Ardennes offensive was not merely an attack, it was a wager. Germany pushed its best remaining armor, its elite SS divisions, its precious fuel stockpiles into one throw of the dice. And the dice have come up short. By January 16th, Allied forces from north and south meet at Houffalize. The Bulge is effectively erased. The front line resembles what it had been a month earlier, but the cost has been staggering. Over 80,000 American casualties, thousands more British and German, entire towns reduced to rubble beneath snow and shellfire. Victory does not feel triumphant. It feels heavy. Eisenhower knows the press will frame it as a heroic stand. Bastogne, Patton's pivot, the nuts reply. And those stories are true. But in private moments he remembers the first reports, the early disbelief, the admission in the map room. "They've caught us with our pants down." He had said it without hesitation. And that honesty, that refusal to deny surprise, allowed him to pivot faster than the enemy expected. The war is not over. The Rhine still lies ahead. Berlin remains distant. But something fundamental has changed. The German army has fired its last great shot in the West. And now, nothing stands between the Allies and the heart of the Reich. Yet Eisenhower knows one final truth. Surprise can never be allowed again. Because in war, the snow can fall quietly until it explodes. And